It's time now for our NFC West check-in with Rams reporter J.B. Long on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. J.B., what's up, man?
Bump Curtis, good morning. Hope you guys are having a good show.
Good, man. Thanks for joining us. Man. And this is a conversation that I was looking forward to having because everybody, their mom and their dad, their grandma, are picking the Rams to win this division, and I think rightfully so. I mean, look at the additions that you have and then guys coming back. It should be the front runners for this division. Just a quick overlook of what they've done this offseason and what you expect from them.
Everybody and their mom and their grandma must not be on those sports betting apps or be making trips to Vegas, because I think the 49ers are the betting favorite. And I think what that's reflective of is their easier path. I think the Niners have one of the, relatively speaking, easiest schedules I've seen in a very long time for a team of their caliber, so that makes sense to me. But I think the flip side is what you're saying, which is the Rams, with their two most recent drafts and Stafford coming back, are built to win now. And I think because of the coach and the quarterback, there's a lot of belief in what they can do, in particular when you consider that they were right there with a chance to knock out what proved to be the Super Bowl champion on their field in Philadelphia on that last drive, and came up just short. So I think that's what is shining through largely. But I agree that the Rams are on the short list of contenders. I mean, I think this time of year, that's all you can say is break teams up into tiers of expectations. And I think the Rams are very much a Super Bowl contender, but they play in a division that I think has four bona fide playoff teams. I think all four of the teams in the NFC West come into the season with realistic playoff expectations. And two of those, in particular, LA and San Francisco, should not settle for anything less than championship pursuits.
JB, things are in a much better place between Matthew Stafford and the Rams at this current moment, but at the start of the offseason, it looked like there might be some confusion as to whether or not Stafford would be back. How close did it get to Stafford not returning to L.A. in this season?
You know, I can't speak specifically to how close, but it felt very real. It felt like for the first time the Rams were prepared and willing to consider football life after Matthew Stafford, and that from the Stafford family standpoint, maybe they wanted to, check out the grass on the other side of the fence and see if indeed it was any greener. It may have been richer. There may have been more money to be had out there, but I think they realized that they couldn't beat the setup that they have personally and professionally. And it's tough to argue with that so long as, Sean McVay is the architect and the play caller, the partnership that he and Matthew have developed through 4 seasons together. And the home that the Staffords have had here in Southern California and continue to for some time. I think it makes a lot of sense to continue this partnership and extend Matthew's prime for as long as possible. Because as long as he's at the switch, I think he's still one of the top 5 throwers of the football walk on the planet, and that gives the Rams a real chance.
What's it been like having Davantae Adams around?
Well, I mean, it's germane to this conversation in particular because of who he's replacing, right? And look, I'm a big fan of Cooper Kupp. 15 times a year. I'm going to be rooting for him in Seattle because he's just that type of person, and he's going to be a lifelong Ram. But for this chapter in his career, he's in Seattle now, and I think the Rams have to let that period of mourning go by, and I think Davantae Adams will help them do that very quickly starting this week at training camp. In my limited, uninformed, inexpert opinion, Davante's a significant upgrade over Cooper Kupp at this stage of his career. I think Adams and Matthew Stafford are going to make magic, and I think him pairing with Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell and some others that the Rams have in their portfolio makes a lot of sense. I think the design will look maybe more like it's been intended to in the last couple of years, but something hasn't been right with the Rams offensively. They've not achieved to what you would perceive to be their potential. And I think having a true X like Davantae, especially in the red zone, is going to open some things up, is going to help them achieve. And then the other thing that I think it allows them to do is move Puka Nacua around like they have with him and with Cooper Kupp over the years in a way that maybe they hadn't been able to idealize previously. I'm stretching a little bit there. I'm probably out of my depth bump compared to what you know about receiver play. But I'll just kind of put that out there as food for your thought and your discussion in terms of how it pieces together for the 25 receiving core.
JB, Aaron Donald retired, and so we all thought in the NFC West, we don't have to worry about the Rams' D-line anymore. We don't have to worry about their pass rush. And it feels like it's better now than it was in the final years of Aaron Donald's career. So how have they been able to find so many guys in the draft in 23 and in 24 to make this defensive line as big of a force as it has become.
Curtis, you really touched on one of my 30,000-foot view thoughts of the Rams, which is they lost the greatest player in franchise history, and like you said, the pass rush somehow got better. Now they lose a Triple Crown winner, a Super Bowl MVP, one of the great receivers in franchise history, and it's incumbent upon them to get better through the passing game in 2025. So that's kind of just broad strokes challenges for the Rams to become who they think they can be this season. But specific to the pass rush, Jared Verse is still the only first-round draft pick the Rams had made since Jared Goff in 2016, and it showed. He looks like a first-round talent. He played like a first-round talent. For a guy to get 4.5 sacks and be a clear runaway favorite and winner of the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, I think that speaks to how impactful he was. And by the way, the runner-up right on his tail was his Florida State teammate, Braden Fisk, who I think is going to be a real force in year two and had some of his best moments against the Seattle Seahawks in particular. So, yeah, I'm still not sure how they've done it except through volume and numbers, because it's no knock on Aaron to say you're right. Their pass rush collectively improved even with that gravitational force removed from the equation.
Hey, I'm just looking at your draft class. Terrence Ferguson was the first pick in the second round for the Los Angeles Rams. Over here, we're expecting a few of these guys to make some noise this rookie class. How dependent is this team going to be on some of these young guys, if at all?
Yeah, hopefully not as much. And that's what the last couple of years have done, is there's been a ton of opportunity for college players to come in and play starting meaningful roles for this Rams offense and defense. I think this is more supplementation, bolstering special teams, lengthening your roster, adding some depth. But Ferguson's probably rightly the one that was chosen first to improve what was the least productive tight end room in the National Football League last year. For the Rams to have gotten as far as they did without Tyler Higbee, who didn't join them until deep in December, made a huge difference upon his return, is I think a real testament to how much they just fought through adversity on offense. Ferguson, I think, has some vertical ability. I think he has some elevation and jump ball ability. I think he will help in the red zone. But it's really difficult for me to envision a rookie tight end impacting the Sean McVay offense. It just hasn't happened consistently. It's one of the toughest positions, as you know, to learn and to leverage in the National Football League. So there's plenty of options there, including former Seahawk Colby Parkinson, who had a disappointing year one in Los Angeles. I do think you'll see some more two tight end sets from the 2025 Los Angeles Rams. But that group, that room collectively has to elevate, and I still think it starts primarily with Tyler Higbee, and Ferguson will be used strategically in a limited package basis, I would assume.
JB, we talked a little bit about Cooper Kupp earlier, but when you got to watch him over the last 3 years after that phenomenal 2021 season where he set every receiving record known to man pretty much, did it ever look to you like he had lost a step when he was in the lineup, or was it just the injuries that were keeping him from having those highly productive years that we saw from him pre-2021?
I think it's yes in both. It's tough for me to tease out. Only Cooper Kupp and the sports performance staff really knows the chicken and the egg there. We know he's on the wrong side of 30. We know that he's paid a heavy toll for his usage rate in the National Football League, and especially in recent years. I mean, I forget the exact stat, but this guy is running like miles of pre-snap motion in the last couple of years. They move him all around the formation, and so his conditioning had to be elite. And unfortunately, he was dealt some bad breaks, including in week 2 last year at Arizona. What I struggle with, Curtis, and what I'll be curious to see all around here in Los Angeles and there in Seattle is clearly in 2021, he and Matthew were inseparable. Like, they had a mind meld going on. It was basically a two-man game winning the Super Bowl. And that deteriorated somehow. I'm not saying their relationship deteriorated. I'm saying their on-field connection was off. Balls were off target. They were overthrown, underthrown, and whether that's quarterback or receiver or a lost step or lost time on task, and lost reps because of injury. It could be a combination of all those things. I just know that with a healthy offseason last summer for Cooper Kupp, my expectations were that even at his quote-unquote advanced age, he was once again going to become one of the elite receivers in the National Football League because he and Stafford had the chance to be locked in again. And there were glimpses, there were moments, especially middle of the season when he and Puka both came back from injury, but across a 17-game slate, it wasn't the same, and it probably, understandably, was never going to be what it was in 2021.
Hey, how close do you think the Rams were to reuniting with Jalen Ramsey? And what are your thoughts on the secondary? The box gets a lot of love, and they should. All right, those big boys are eating. But what are your thoughts on the secondary, too?
Yeah, I think it was real. I think they have a real affinity for Jalen Ramsey. What he did here in Los Angeles was truly elite cornerback play, and because of his size and positional strength, he also has some longevity in the back end, right? I think there was a real role where they moved him from corner to star, and I think there's even been talk from his camp, and certainly I remember when he was in LA about, is there like a late stage chapter at safety? So this organization having the willingness and the flexibility to reimagine the role that Jalen Ramsey can play in a defense, I think has meant great things to him as a player, and conversely attributed a lot of success from Jalen Ramsey to the Rams during his time here. The part that you can't always align is the contract that he was working with, and I don't think that number that he was carrying out of Miami fit with where the Rams are. Now, had they had more advanced notice that he was going to be available this offseason and that somehow that breakdown with McDonald would happen in Miami, okay, maybe then there's a different conversation. But I think it was more of a aspiration, a wish, a desire that just didn't quite fit the budget than maybe an actual reality. And I'll finish by saying I think a lot of people were flabbergasted that the Rams did not make a move at defensive back, either through free agency or a trade or even the draft. But they do have numbers back there, and I think intuitively what they have to be banking on, Bump, is one, interior improvement, right? Like just getting better with more time on task for these players, and then also covering for some aging corners like Darius Williams and Nickella Witherspoon and some young up-and-comers by virtue of a dominant pass rush. Those things going hand in hand, rush and cover. If the Rams are over-indexed on rushers and under-indexed on corners, I think in balance they're hoping that they can control opposing passing games.
Is there a stretch of the schedule you're looking at as pretty crucial to the Rams' overall success in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, the first month. It's improbable. It's historic what the Rams have done the last couple of seasons, following 1-4, I think, and going 3 games below 500 at their bye week the last 2 years and rallying to win 10 games. A division last year, playoffs both years, a playoff win in the wild card. Like, that doesn't happen. And so everybody wants to start fast. The Rams in particular are saying they have to start faster. But I think it's poignant for this reason. One, to do it 3 years in a row is truly unprecedented. It is just factually not going to happen. And the other thing is they've kind of dodged the trade deadline these last couple of years. And with an aging upper crust of the roster and a really competitive NFC West, if they don't pile up wins early, if they are at or below 500 come November, I think there's going to have to be a real serious look at what do we do with some of our top-paid eldest assets, because on draft day, they traded back with Atlanta to get out of that first round. They bought themselves an extra 2026 first-round draft pick by moving back 20 spots, and that's an asset that they can deploy now, next week, next month, or anytime before the trade deadline. But if not, if they don't use it as a way to go all in and compete right now with Matthew Stafford and this chapter of their roster, I think there's another world that exists that I don't want to embrace here in July, where it's, hey, we're not going to tear it down, but we can quick pivot. We can retool on the fly because we have 2 first-round draft picks next year, and we are looking at what is supposed to be a really, really good quarterback class, coming through the draft next year.
He's Rams broadcaster J.B. Long. J.B., appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, J.B.